Hi, welcome to Sustainability in Your Ear, the EARTH911.com podcast for April 30th, 2018. I'm Evelyn Lopez, and I'm joined today by Mitch Radcliffe, publisher of EARTH911. We also have Sarah Lozanova here as one of our EARTH911.com writers. Today, we are introducing a new segment. We'll be interviewing the founders of aluminum bottle maker PATHWater about the challenges of getting consumers to switch from plastic, and also about their work in schools to convert kids to sustainable practices. Now, let's get right into the news. Here are some of the top stories from EARTH911.com. And later, we'll get to your questions. Our first story is about ice cream. The team tackled the mystery of recycling ice cream containers. Mitch, can you tell us a little bit about what an ice cream carton is made of and whether it can be recycled?
Sure, Evelyn. You know, the ice cream container is a ubiquitous feature of American life. The average American eats 23 pounds of ice cream every year. And these cartons are actually difficult to recycle and not accepted in all places. And now, that may sound counterintuitive. As we all know, a carton is made of paperboard, or basically cardboard. And on the outside, there's a coating of clay that allows the printing to hold on that ice cream. The problem with ice cream on the container, on the ice cream front, however, you have to include an internal lining of polyethylene to help the box hold up to the freezing temperatures of your refrigerator. And that is the problem. This polyethylene does not break down in the normal process of recycling, nor can you compost it. So what we have to do is find, as consumers, specific curbside programs that will accept it. And that is not necessarily the case in all locations. For instance, in Seattle, you can have your ice cream containers picked up at the curb, but you can't in Portland. The same is true in Austin, Texas, which of course is the center of the recycling movement in Texas. But Fort Worth does accept it. So, you know, you have a lot of different variation from locality to locality as to whether or not these are accepted. And if you do have a program that takes these, make sure you do a couple of things. First, empty out all the remaining ice cream before you recycle it. You want to give the carton a rinse, and that's partly to keep pests out of your recycling bins, as well as to make it easier to complete the process of breaking down the paper and pulling the polyethylene out appropriately.
Well, I'm a little bit curious about ice cream cartons being accepted in curbside programs. I thought that they generally were accepted.
Well, you know, a good rule of thumb is to look at the list of materials on your local curbside program's website. And if you don't see frozen food boxes or ice cream containers specifically mentioned by name, they're probably not going to be included in the program. Okay.
Well, if I can't get it recycled through my curbside recycling, what can I do with the ice cream carton?
Well, unfortunately, there's not a lot you can do because of that polyethylene lining. If your community doesn't accept them, you probably are just going to need to throw it away. However, if you do try to compost it, there's a possibility it would work, but usually compost piles don't get warm enough to break down that plastic lining in the wet strength paperboard that we were talking about before. So it's a product that actually needs to be redesigned with some better ideas.
Mm-hmm. Well, that does seem like a real problem, but it's kind of a good lead-in to our next story about becoming a conscious consumer. Mitch, tell us a little bit about what's next.
Well, Earth911 did a series for Earth Day on how to reduce your carbon footprint across 5 different areas of your life. You know, there's a problem. After 3 years of flat CO2 levels globally, 2017 saw a 1.4% increase in CO2, and the planet seems to be headed for another record this year in 2018, when it's predicted to be up about 2% over 2 years ago. So what we want to do is explore the decisions we make to make better outcomes, part of the economy based on our purchasing. And Sarah, I know that you've done a lot of work on conscious consumerism over the course of the years. Can you tell us a little about this idea and the movement around it?
Yeah, the concept of conscious consumerism involves making aware purchasing decisions, be it selecting brands or stores or products that have more of a sustainable orientation or environmentally friendly practices. And the goal is really twofold. It's an opportunity to reduce our individual environmental impact, and it's also an opportunity to vote with our dollars, because the way that we spend our money shapes what companies are successful or what products are stocked on the shelves. So it's also an opportunity to impact things beyond just our own consumption.
So let me ask you a question. I've done a lot of research on the generational nature of this change, and clearly millennials who poll at higher than 70% in favor of paying additional fees in order to get a recyclable or a sustainable product, and in some cases up to 79%. It's clear that what is happening is that we are growing out of a wasteful lifestyle. And it's going to take a while before the old coots like me are all gone and we are truly 100% dedicated to sustainability. But this is certainly going to happen as a result of the aging out of one population and another coming up, recognizing that, the serious nature of the impact that we've made on the environment. What would you do before you made a purchasing decision, Sarah?
Yeah, one of the things that I really recommend is doing some research before making a purchase, just taking a little bit of time to research the environmental impact and more environmentally friendly alternatives.
In terms of local, your alternatives, what would you look for? Because you're usually, locally oriented when you're making these decisions. You can't just pick up something from the other side of the world and make it sustainable.
Right. Well, one thing to keep in mind is how much packaging there is. And in general, I recommend picking products with less packaging, especially if it's packaging that's difficult to recycle or not recyclable. Avoiding disposable goods is another important consideration. Be it anything that you would just use one or two times, it's better to avoid. Also, choosing natural products over their synthetic counterparts, like cotton is a great example, like buying an organic cotton shirt over a polyester one. Those kinds of things can make a big difference. I also often refer to the Environmental Working Group Skin Deep database if I want information about personal care products.
Tell us a little about that. So you can find out what on Skin Deep?
It talks about the toxicity of the different ingredients. It ranks them on a scale from 1 to 10. So 10 is the most toxic and 1 is the most benign. And so, because even when I do my research, it can get a little bit overwhelming reading labels on personal care products and figuring out what all the different ingredients are and which ones to avoid. So they take they make it easier to get really useful product information because of the 1 to 10 score that they give products.
Well, I had a couple of thoughts to add in on that too. One of the things that I've said for a long time, living in a not very big town, is that if you want to have a town and live in a town where there's a strong merchant base, where there are stores that offer the things that you want, then you need to shop there. So I think that, eating locally and shopping locally helps with this as well. But, Mitch, the other question that I had about this is what can companies do to help this process along? Because I'm not always able to see the full impact of a product on the environment. And I would like to know more from the companies about what the true consequences on my purchase are for my purchases. And I really can only get that if the manufacturers provide some more information to me.
Well, that's really the problem is this notion of transparency in the full product life cycle, that is from extracting whatever it's made of from the earth or from the environment, manufacturing it, shipping it, the time and space and energy it takes to sell it, as well as then all of the time that we use it, the ways we use it, and how we retire it. And that information simply isn't easily accessible right now. In fact, EARTH911 has just started a partnership with CSRHub.com, which is a corporate social responsibility reporting site. And they've agreed to give us access to their environmental ratings to share with our readers for the first time outside of a subscription. So that's going to be a step in the right direction. But there's a bigger problem. And actually, Sarah's comments about Skin Deep show that as well. In looking at personal skincare products, you're getting toxicity information, but you're not getting all the information about the carbon load of those products. Mm-hmm. And that kind of information is now being collected by many companies. It may not be explicitly collected, but it's extrapolable from the information that they're collecting about their entire supply chain. And so I see information technology as a potential, not solution or panacea for this, but it's certainly going to give us access to a lot more information about things in our environment conveniently and possibly encapsulated in the kinds of 1 to 10 scoring that Sarah was talking about with skindeep.com. So, I'm sure that within a few years, you'll be able to look at a product, maybe scan the UPC code on it, the little barcode, and get information about the full life cycle implications of that product. Find out not only how much carbon it consumed in manufacturing, but where it was made and who made it, maybe. I know that there's some studies going on inside the World Bank and the UN about how to explore these notions of provenance now. And I'm expecting to see entrepreneurs come up with apps to help people resolve that problem. Seeing into the entire supply chain. So we're working on it here at EARTH911, and we're looking for partners to try to solve the problem as well. Ultimately, though, companies have to make the decision to be responsible to their customers' values. And I think that consumers, in this conscious consumerism movement, are really embracing the future and recognizing that their dollar is a vote. And those votes are being counted every day by businesses all over the world. We need to reinforce what we value and tell these companies that if they don't share those values, we are not going to do business with them.
That's right. That's good. Well, I really appreciate your point of view of that, and you have a lot of good information on that. Our next story is also about sort of the deeper information. We want to talk a little bit about transportation carbon footprints. Sarah, you had a great article on reducing your transportation carbon footprint on earth911.com. So I'd like you to tell me a little bit about that. And Mitch, I think you had some comments you also wanted to make on transportation issues.
So transportation is a massive contributor to greenhouse gases. It actually accounts for about a little more than a quarter of all U.S. emissions. And so it really creates an opportunity for us as individuals to reduce our own emissions because we make a lot of choices on how we transport ourselves. There's several different ways that people can really cut down on their personal transportation emissions. One is by carpooling. Whenever possible, I recommend just looking at the places that you typically travel and then determining if there's neighbors or people that live along the way that you could carpool with. And this can actually be a great time to socialize in addition to saving gas and wear and tear on the car. Combining trips is another way to really reduce carbon emissions. Just thinking ahead. So if you need to go to a certain area of town to go grocery shopping, let's say, are there other errands that you could combine at the same time so you don't need to make separate trips to that area of town? Another one is driving a car that is fuel efficient. That's one of the easiest things that we can do is when purchasing a new car, getting the most fuel efficient car in its class. And also just examining what type of vehicle do we really need to own? Because oftentimes people think about needing a bigger vehicle, but in reality, they maybe only need a bigger vehicle several times a year. So it might be possible to rent or borrow a larger vehicle as needed and own a smaller, more fuel-efficient vehicle. Another thing that I recommend is for people to walk or jog or bike or anything that doesn't involve fossil fuels for their commute. And sometimes workplaces will even have pledge drives encouraging coworkers to bike to work, for example. Another option is to drive an electric vehicle. And this is an especially good option if the electricity that you consume is from a lower carbon source. For example, not coming from coal.
You outlined things that anyone can do. And I think that is really helpful because so many people think, there's nothing I can do that will make a difference. And I think you have indicated that every little thing can make a big difference.
Yeah, especially if we're talking about collectively reducing our emissions by several percent, just doing a few of these could easily help a family cut their emissions by several percent annually.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you see the future of transportation from your perspective, Sarah? I mean, I don't know whether you own a car or not. We've only been working together for a while, but do you generally not drive when you can?
Absolutely. Yeah, I live in a rural area, but I live a couple miles outside of town. And so whenever possible, I will ride my bike into town. I also try to carpool as much as possible when my kids have activities. And this actually makes it kind of fun. If my kids are going to camp, then I can invite other neighboring families to sign their kids up for the same camp. And the kids usually have a better time as a result. For years when I lived in Chicago, I would rollerblade around and combine that with taking public transportation because it was so easy to bring rollerblades on the train versus bringing a bike on the train. And I definitely use public transportation whenever possible.
Yeah, see, this is that generational thing. I was raised actually to get into a car, and I still suffer from the problem, frankly. But you point out in the article that taking public transportation, for instance, has already reduced the emissions by 34% since 1995, and it also cuts down on the traffic on the streets. As you look at all of these dreams of autonomous vehicles and so forth, do you see hope in any of that? Hope in services like Uber and Lyft or something new that will help us replace our personal vehicle with shared vehicles?
I think a lot of the solutions lie in things that cities can do. For example, making cities more pedestrian friendly in the planning process encourages people to walk. Having bike lanes makes it safer for people to bike around. Having high quality public transportation systems with short commute times makes it a lot more appealing to jump on a train, especially if you can get to work quicker and more cheaply than driving. So I do see hope. And I think some of the ride-sharing services like Uber, however, can have mixed results. If it makes it easier to have a car on command, it might help reduce car ownership, but I don't know that it necessarily reduces carbon emissions related to transportation per se.
I agree about that. And I've been studying the on-demand economy for several years. One of the concerns that I have looking at how Uber and Lyft in particular operate is that they drive from one place to another and often have to make a return trip with nobody in the vehicle as a result to get back to the center of the action where they can pick up another ride. And so you actually build in almost twice as much driving in some cases. So the promise is that this will become so ubiquitous that there won't be the need to move vehicles to people who need a ride, that they'll simply be everywhere. And this is, it's kind of creepy sometimes when you listen to the stories about driverless cars wandering the streets looking for the next ride, like Travis Bickle in the movie Taxi Driver to me. But the opportunity, if this is an entirely electric fleet and a fleet that is driven with renewable energy, is potentially vast. But we still have to work out the wear and tear on the roads, the replacement of the roads, the wear and tear on tires and recycling of tires that go with all of the process of moving things and people around in order to make this a truly efficient economy. And I really think that over the next 10 to 15 years, there'll be a transformation in efficiencies based on information technology. That's going to be forced on business and forced on communities by the need to do things, more things with less money. So this is a good time to be a person making a choice about where you want to spend your money and how you want to spend it to support the environment. And, that's been a theme throughout the show today, but I really think it's great that we can make these decisions in transportation, in other areas of our lives. And we'll be continuing to try to provide more information, because I think that's the biggest problem right now. Consumers don't know at a glance what the value of sustainability or environmental friendliness is in any product or service. And we need to get there.
Yeah, making accurate information more discernible to consumers is a great way to do that.
Hey, let's get into the conversation with PATHWater we told you about in the earlier segment. I'm joined today by one of the founders of PATHWater, Gulshan Kumar, who's the director of marketing at the company, which was founded in 2015. And they're doing something really interesting. That is, they're selling aluminum bottled water at retail to get people to make a choice that's both healthier than soda and other sugared drinks, as well as using a product, the can, which is recyclable. And so, Gulshan, thanks for joining us today. Tell us what gave you guys the idea to start this, and what is PATHWater?
Yes, thank you for having us, Mitch. So how we start is we really care about the environment, and we know there's a plastic epidemic that is going on currently in our world. So we really wanted to make an impact with a product that can have global, make a global impact, I should say. Mm-hmm. We started in 2015. PATHWater is the first ever water in a reusable aluminum bottle. So what we're doing is we're disrupting the plastic bottled water industry, which has been very harmful to our environment and health. So what we decided to do is we package our water in a reusable aluminum bottle for almost of the same price as plastic bottled water. We are just making a healthier and safer decision for consumers. And this is something that, this is where our market is heading.
That's great.
Couple of years.
We agree, obviously, that aluminum is a better way to go than plastic. So the bottled water, you distill it, obviously, and tell us about the liner of the can, or of the bottle as well. I keep referring to it as a can.
Right. So there's purified water inside, reverse osmosis water, and the liner is actually a certain type of plastic. It's PP, so it doesn't have any effect on the recyclability of the aluminum bottle. Out of all the different types of plastic, it's actually the most recycled plastic.
Great. And so how many times can you reuse this bottle before you should recycle it? Is it something that's
so that's really up to the consumer. I know people who have kept the bottle for a year, and I know people who kept the bottle for a day. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to hand wash it. You don't want to put it in a dishwasher or anything like that, but you can reuse it as long as you take care of it. It's a very durable and strong product. So it's actually like a reusable bottle.
The aluminum isn't like a can. It's actually thick.
No, it's not like a Coke can or anything like that. It's actually a real durable bottle, and it takes a lot of, if you hold it, you can't squish it easily. It's a durable bottle, strong bottle.
So let's talk a little about when you get done with it. You want to get rid of it. It is recyclable, obviously, and aluminum uses far less energy to recycle than plastic does.
Exactly.
Does this go into curbside programs? And I know, for instance, you've got a plastic cap. Does that cap get recycled too?
Yes, the whole bottle is actually recycled. And as you know, aluminum has a 70% recycle rate. So once people throw this in the recycling bin, obviously the plastic cap will be attached to it. So we're actually kind of increasing that 30% of plastic that gets recycled because people just know to recycle aluminum, right? It's the most valuable material in the recycling bin.
So how do people find this right now? I know you're going to retail, so you'd be on the shelf next to the bottled water in plastic.
Right. So we actually have over 500 7-Elevens in California. Mm-hmm. And we're also going to be selling online.
So if I visit PATHWater online, I can order a case of these or just one at a time?
Yes. So actually there will be a link to Amazon where you can buy single bottles and also, so we have two sizes, a 25 ounce and a 16 ounce. Both of those will be available in a 12 pack and a 9 pack on Amazon. Fantastic. As well with single bottles.
So what's the hardest part of getting something like this into retail? I know that a lot of retailers, particularly at a 7-Eleven, aren't really aware of the benefits of aluminum over plastic. How do you get that across to them, and how does the consumer recognize that when they're in the store?
To be quite frank with you, Mitch, this product is absolutely amazing, and it is not difficult to get in retail at all. If I were to be 100% transparent with you. The retailers just absolutely love the product, and it's not only that, they kind of understand how the market is shifting as well, so they see the opportunity in it.
Right.
So to answer your question, it's not difficult at all because the product is that amazing.
That's fantastic. So are you doing signage and the like to make consumers who are looking at their options on the shelf aware of the benefits of that aluminum bottle?
Signage? Did you say signage?
Yeah, signage.
Yeah, so our marketing material is a lot of it's educational, right? That's what we do. We're way beyond just a bottled water bin. What we do is we educate consumers about kind of the whole epidemic of plastic and to make more sustainable choices. Mm-hmm. So all our marketing material is kind of based around that. We're encouraging people to refill their bottle, which results in kind of them living a more healthier lifestyle, drinking more water, staying away from single-use plastic that contains BPA. So that's kind of what our marketing and our signage goes around is education as well as just way more than the product.
So let's talk a little about the difference you're making with regard to plastic. The average American uses about 126 plastic bottles a year. If you were to get them to switch to a PATHWater bottle and refill it 126 times, that's an immense amount of recycling energy saved.
100%. 100%.
How much less plastic recycling do you see the PATHWater bottle creating over the course of the next couple of years?
I see it creating a huge impact. Currently, right now, we sell to over 100 schools throughout California, and I go out and I educate the kids and I actually talk to them and I ask them how many times they're refilling. And it's amazing to me how many kids have kept the bottle and how many times they've refilled it. To quantify that number would be something very, very hard to do. But what I can tell you is that it's a lot. So for every PATHWater, I would say an average person saves about 5 plastic bottle waters from going into the landfills and oceans.
Great.
This is a week, right?
And of course, the oceans and the Great Garbage Patch are filled with plastic, so it would be a wonderful thing to see that reduced. You've done a lot of work in the schools, and what we see happening is a generational change in just the basic acceptance and expectation that there'll be sustainable products. Millennials are far ahead of older people in terms of just expecting to see something that is either recycled or recyclable on the shelf. And Gen Z, the kids that you're talking to in the schools now are almost 90% or higher committed to sustainability. How do you communicate to the kids about this? What's your message when you sit down with a classroom full of
Right. Well, the amazing thing is that 20 years ago, this wasn't an issue. So when I was in school, to give you an example, these sustainability talks weren't really happening. What's amazing is now the kids are kind of confronted with this issue, so they have to learn about it. So it's a great timing for the product because they're kind of learning about it in class, about the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, sustainability, and all that. And then we also have this, oh, hey, by the way, we have this amazing product that we're selling in our cafeteria that also is saving the environment. So when I go and do these educational pop-ups and I ask them trivia questions and stuff like that, it's amazing because these kids actually have the answers to the questions and they're learning about it in class. So it's not really easy, it's not really hard to kind of explain the product and why it's better for them. What I simply do is I tell them why it's better than single-use plastic in, a couple of ways, but they can really resonate with the bottle automatically because they see the value in it.
So they are aware of the plastic pollution going on.
Yes, they're very aware. They're very aware, yes.
Well, so, and how many kids have you reached so far?
I've reached over 3,000 students. I've gone to over 50 different school sites throughout California.
That's great. Now, is that how you guys plan to continue to expand nationally, is to get people out into the schools as well as getting into retail? Yes. Schools is definitely a very important channel. Like I said, we're way more than just a water brand. We're an educational kind of company that we want to bring awareness, and that's like very important to us. So that's how we do it, is we educate through the schools, kind of starting from the inside out. So you also have another commitment that you've made for consumers, and that's a 5% pledge, taking 5% of your revenue and putting it into charity. Where does that money go, and what are you doing with it? Yeah, so we actually have a number of different organizations that we're working for, and that's where exactly that money goes. Plastic Tides, Save the Waves, Parley, Surf Riders Foundation. These are all our top organizations that we decide to donate that money to because we have a really aligned missions and goals. They're amazing organizations that we see ourselves creating a long kinship with. And so what's your big goal? What is? Obviously, it'd be great if kids stopped drinking sugared water all day long. When you think about the future, let's say 5 years from now, how does the world look different because of the work you're doing now? Yes. So that answer is very simple. We want to change consumer behavior and really change the way that people see plastic bottled water. This bottled water, right? We're changing that consumer behavior. We're revolutionizing the bottled water industry. So kind of changing that human behavior, which, as you know, can be hard for people. Changing something, it's very hard for people. But in all honesty, PATHWater makes that transition so easy for people. So that is kind of the whole mission, is to change the way that people see bottled water and plastic bottled water. Well, that's a great goal. So why don't you tell us where we can find it online? Online, if you go to our website, www.drinkpath.com, there's a link to our Amazon. We will be selling in the next 2 weeks on Amazon. You can buy single bottles of our 16-ounce and 25-ounce, and you can buy a 9-pack of our 25-ounce and a 12-pack of our 16-ounce. That's fantastic. Well, thank you, Gulshan. I appreciate the time you took today to tell us about PATHWater. Thank you, Mitch.
Let's now turn to the smartest readers on Earth for the question segment.
All right, first up, we've got a question from Tamika in Niagara Falls, New York, who asks, how do I recycle cassette tapes in my local area?
Now, this is an interesting question because it's very closely related to a recent WNBC TV segment that Earth911.com's editor-in-chief, Haley Shapley, spoke in. It is a great little video, a very informative piece on recycling videotapes. You can check it out at the www.nbcnewyork.com website. Look for how to recycle used videotapes, and you'll find that segment.
So cassette tapes, like videotapes in that segment, contain materials that aren't particularly highly valued, just some plastic and a little bit of metal on the tape. And we learned a couple of things working with WNBC on that story. They contacted a service through Sony called e-waste. And essentially, Sony has a policy that if they've made something, they will take it back, no matter how long ago they made it. So if your tapes, Tamika, happen to be made by Sony, you can contact Sony, and there's a a way to do that, and here's where you go. ewaste.com, that's EWASTE. You go to the site and search on Sony, and they will show you in the search results a form to use to get free shipping. Now, this applies for people in New York, in residents of New York State. It's a free shipping program if, in fact, you can't drop the tapes off yourself. We also looked into the EARTH911 database and found that the Value Village in Niagara Falls will take the tapes, as will a local recycling company called Hasman. And they're at hasmanusa.com. They're in Tonawanda, New York, about 10 miles away. So there are a number of options, but like the videotapes, you have to find the right recycler to get the job done.
Well, our next question is from Lori in Valencia, California, and she asks, how do I recycle a clothes dryer?
Well, this is a frequently asked question on EARTH911, and we have a recycling guide dedicated to disposing of large appliances. So if you visit the site, search on how to recycle large appliances, and you'll find it. And what Lori faces is a problem that I've seen growing as appliance makers have de-emphasized longer life and built in more planned obsolescence to increase sales. So now consumers have to deal with this question more often. They have to replace their dryers in large appliances more frequently. And the easiest way, perhaps, to get your old dryer recycled is if you happen to be buying a new one, buy it from a retailer who will take back your old one and recycle it themselves. As we talked about earlier, conscious consumers can build in recycling with a little planning. And since Lori's dryer is still working, she can also consider donating it to an organization like Habitat for Humanity. This is important because if you reuse this appliance, you actually make it essentially less carbon burdensome on the earth because you're delaying the time it's going to take to either remanufacture it or somebody to have to buy a new device. So that's where I would start.
Okay. Another good tip is to check with your local utility company because many of them will give you a credit for replacing older appliances. Mm-hmm. This is because the newer appliance reduces the load on the power grid, so utilities actively encourage upgrading. Also, newer appliances use power more efficiently, so you may actually save on your purchase and save on your power bill. So what's next, Mitch?
Well, we've got a question from Glenwood Springs, Colorado, where Marlene is asking, where can I recycle an old camping stove propane tank?
Oh, wow, that's a hard one. Unfortunately, these propane camping stoves can be challenging to recycle. Local scrap metal recycling yards are the best place to start. Some will accept them, but many will not. So it can be a bit of a challenge. I would recommend giving some of the scrap yards in your area a call as a starting point to see if they will accept the propane tank.
The reason a lot of the scrap yards hesitate to accept propane tanks in particular has to do with safety. A spark during the shredding process could set off an explosion or start a fire in the machinery. And so it's very difficult after all to figure out whether or not that propane tank is really empty. If you've ever had one, they actually lose pressure, but they are not really empty. They have a lot of propane, or at least enough to respond to a spark with fire. And so you've got to be very careful. So, we don't, unfortunately, have a scrap recycler that will accept a propane tank in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. We checked with the Pitkin County landfill, and they won't take it. But, one thing Marlene can do is call a local sporting goods store to see if they accept old tanks. A lot of these, Lowe's or Cabela's might have a return program. In many cases, they may be asking you to replace it with a new one, but perhaps they'd take it. So that's our advice for Marlene. And finally, we have a question that I just love because it gets to the whole problem we've been talking about with conscious consumerism during the course of the show today. And it's from Becky in Hawthorne, Nevada, and she asks, how do I get my town to recycle? Becky's hometown, we looked it up, is only about 3,700 residents. So it's probably going to be best to focus on county-level activism to get a recycling program started. And, Evelyn, you've run for mayor of Tacoma, and you've been active in local and statewide politics for a long time. What do you suggest?
Well, for this particular case, getting a recycling program started, I would probably start, first of all, by contacting my local environmental services office or the garbage collection service in that area. And the reason is that a lot of times those offices actually are planning on recycling options, and they may be delighted to find out that there's some local residents who want to partner with them or who want to get involved. So I would start with them so you can build on whatever they're doing, and also so that you can find out whatever resources they might make available to the community to get more recycling going. But the other thing I would do is I would use social media resources. Facebook groups have been particularly good options for organizing people with similar goals in Tacoma. And if you get a group of interested people in contact with one another, then you can start on some simple events focused on recycling. And just some ideas might be collecting corrugated cardboard at local school sporting events so that can be recycled effectively. Perhaps walking or running groups might want to do a litter pickup once a month while they're out on their routes. You might even have a community yard sale and invite people to drop off their aluminum cans and bottles, since those are generally universally easy to recycle. All of that is really with an eye toward both establishing a grassroots community of people who are actively interested in recycling, and then you want to parlay that into some action at your city or county council by going to them and saying, look, I have 300 people who are actively engaged in recycling, and we want to talk with you about increasing our community recycling options. So that's what I would say, build your community, and then you start taking it to your government authorities and talking to them about making some changes.
And 300 people is a massive number of people from a politician's perspective when they show up.
Yeah, it really is, because those are 300 motivated people to vote.
Yeah. Sarah, what's your experience with this kind of project? Have you done things like this?
Yeah, I helped to get a recycling program going on a college campus. And how I did that was I found a group of students that shared similar values and were excited about it. And we approached the university together, found out what their concerns were, how much it would cost, how to address their concerns, and then we wrote a detailed proposal. In that case, one of their big concerns was that students wouldn't actually use the recycling program, so it would be unsuccessful. So one of the things we designed was an educational approach to really have high recycling rates on campus.
And that, the educational approach is, I think, a great way to go, because it also gives people something to start talking about.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I did a little research on this to see if anybody had studied how to get recycling adopted, and found a paper published by the Stanford Graduate School of Business by a marketing professor at the University of British Columbia named Kate White. And she looked at two different ways of messaging about recycling. One is what's called a loss-framed message, which is essentially to focus on the negative consequences of not recycling. The world will be harmed by your inaction, essentially. And the other kind of message was called a gain-framed message. It focuses on the positive consequences of recycling. In other words, you can make a difference, like we've been talking about all through the show. And what they did was they used door hangers, the old hangers that bother you on the front door when you get home from work, with different messages on each side, and then tracked the results in terms of how people reacted. And it was interesting. After watching for a while, they discovered that the urgent negative information, those lost frame messages, can work best to motivate people when clear instructions about how to recycle were presented. So, for instance, the door hanger could say, you need to recycle. It will make a massive difference in this crisis situation. And here's what you should do with 100 aluminum cans or 5 aluminum cans. Or the next aluminum can you see, do this with it. Those concrete instructions based on a lost frame message, the threat of inaction, really do work. But on the other hand, when they presented the gain frame messages in another study, they found that the willingness to, when they showed the lost frame messages, the threat messages, it actually discouraged action because there were no instructions. So that confirmed the other result. as well as they found that positive messages emphasizing the urgency of the problem can be the most effective when you emphasize the benefits. So cleaner air, or cleaner streets, or the stream will no longer be as polluted, or it will be clean. Those positive messages really do add up to some kind of long-term commitment to action. But it seems like the threat of not acting is the most efficient way to get others in your neighborhood or community to start to recycle with you. So a little guidance there. We hope that makes a difference, and that Becky can get the thing going in Hawthorne. Good luck, Becky. We hope you succeed, and let us know how it goes.
Yeah, definitely, Becky. If you get things off the ground, or if you need help while you're trying to figure out next moves, get back in touch with us. And that's a wrap. We're at the end of another Sustainability in Your Ear, EARTH911.com podcast. You'll hear from us again next week, but you can always write, and you can share a comment or ask a question. You can get to us by sending us an email at feedback@earth911.com.